The following program is furnished by The Truth About Your Future, LLC. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station. This information is education and not financial advice. Sponsors of the program pay a fee to be interviewed. See the truthayf.com disclosure page for details. Consult a financial advisor before investing.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman is brought to you by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. And by Bitwise, a trusted guide in crypto has never mattered more. Connect with their dedicated team of crypto experts nationwide at bitwiseinvestments.com. And by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100, Invesco.com. And by Edelman Financial Engines. Rick Edelman is a board member, consultant, shareholder, and client of EFE, but EFE is unaffiliated and has no say over the content of The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
This is where technology, innovation, and personal finance come together.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
And now your host, Rick Edelman.
Thanks for joining me here on The Truth About Your Future. Here are just some of the topics on today's show. The newest megatrend, changes in pension plans that may affect you. 'Tis the season to be generous. Lab-grown coffee, free money in some big cities, a robot that might fill your next prescription, and my wife Jean Edelman's Word of the Week. You know, amidst all the turmoil and uncertainty and volatility that we're experiencing in this economic environment, it's good to be looking to the future, to seeing where technological innovation is going to be taking us, providing some really exciting opportunities. A new soft implantable cooling device could provide pain relief on demand. It works by directly chilling the affected nerves. This would block pain signals to the brain. This is a big deal because 20% of people, 1 out of 5, suffer from chronic pain, often due to surgery or an injury. Many, as we know, turn to opioids, which are highly addictive. Misuse leads to fatal overdose. 13,000 people died just here in the U.S. alone from overdoses last year. Scientists have now figured out how they can cool a nerve to 59 degrees. This blocks the transmission of pain signals to the brain. The device dissolves within the body within a month, but the nerves can't be cooled indefinitely. If they try to do that, it creates long-term tissue damage. So the research is promising, but not finished yet, and so their efforts are continuing. This could be a breakthrough, though, in pain management. Scientists at the Institute of Cancer Research have genetically modified the herpes simplex. That's the virus that gives you a cold sore. And they're using this modification to attack cancerous tumors. It has apparently cured one person so far. He got injections every other week for 5 weeks, and he's now cancer-free for 2 years. The injections are administered directly into the tumor. You know how a cold sore eventually bursts? Well, that's what the tumor does. It just blows up, gone. 40 patients are in this clinical trial. 10 of them report benefits. Pretty exciting that we're taking a virus and making it attack another virus. You know, the microscope's been around for 400 years, but you can only magnify so much. So along comes a neuroscientist at MIT, Edward Boyden. He figured out a solution that if we can't look at smaller things, then let's make the smaller things bigger so we can see them more easily. He figured out how to make proteins 5 times bigger than they really are so they can be seen with a microscope. And that's furthering our ability to do research into healthcare innovations. Intellia Therapeutics is a company using CRISPR gene editing treatments to attack a rare genetic disease called hereditary angioedema. Of the 12 people in the study, 11 of them had reduced symptoms. Pretty exciting. Well, first we had dairy-free milk, and then meatless burgers. Now, entrepreneurs are creating chocolate and coffee without beans. Cocoa and coffee farms are linked to deforestation, environmentally bad, and the chocolate industry has been criticized for use of child labor. So one company is using fermented barley and carob as an alternative to cocoa powder. Another company uses fermented oats and sugar beets. A third is making lab-grown cocoa. And on the coffee front, one outfit's creating coffee using synthetic biology and fermentation. They use date seeds, chicory root, and grapeseed. The caffeine comes from green tea. So pretty soon, you'll be able to eat chocolate, drink coffee that is neither of the above. Walgreens is the nation's second largest pharmacy chain. They are now using robots to fill prescriptions. This cuts the workload of pharmacists by 25%. It gives them more time to deliver vaccinations and talk with patients. And by the way, it is saving Walgreens more than $1 billion a year. It's also solving their staff shortages. Walgreens has 9,000 stores, but they've been forced to cut pharmacy hours at a third of them. They're using 8 robotic drug filling centers that are serving 1,800 of their stores, and they're going to open another 16 of these centers over the next 2 years. One of them in Dallas fills 35,000 prescriptions a day. Can you imagine how many human pharmacists it would take to do that? Robotics coming to pretty much every business and industry, and that's why it's such a huge investment growth opportunity. The IRS is figuring out how to provide an online tax return that you can file for free. It's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. No more tax preparers. The IRS has 9 months to tell Congress how it's going to pull this off. I mean, it makes perfect sense if you think about it. The IRS collects all of the data about your income, right? They get your W-2, they get your 1099s, they get all the information about your income and your brokerage accounts, your IRA distributions. The IRS gets information about your dividends and interest earned, your capital gains. They get all this info. If the IRS already has the data, why are they making us fill out forms to provide to them that they already have? And why are they making us pay professional tax preparers to fill out the forms? Makes perfect sense, doesn't it, that the IRS should be preparing tax returns on our behalf, eliminating the need for us to fuss with our 1040 every year and eliminating the need for us to pay tax preparers. Yeah, if you're a tax preparer, I think you're obsolete. Give it 10 years, I don't think you're going to exist. You might want to rethink that accounting degree that your child is proposing to get in college. Hey, how do you like the idea of free money? Well, there are 4 dozen pilot programs in operation around the country right now. Los Angeles has the biggest. Local governments are giving people free money. It's got a name called Universal Basic Income. The idea has been around for decades. Alaska has no income tax. Everybody gets a tax refund from the state oil revenues. Andrew Yang made a big deal of it when he ran for president in 2020. Now there's an organization called Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. In Los Angeles, 3,200 people who have at least one child with an annual income below the federal poverty level, they get $500 a month for 18 months. San Diego gives $500 a month for 2 years. In Atlanta, Minneapolis, Denver, they're all doing this as well. Preliminary research from the University of Tennessee and the University of Pennsylvania show that families that get this money end up with more stable income. And having this income gives them the time they need to find full-time jobs without running the risk of becoming homeless. Before getting the money, 28% of these families had full-time jobs, but afterward, 40% of them did. Universal basic income is an idea that is growing in support at the city level, state level, and federal level.
Listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Thanks for listening to today's show, and thanks to Bitwise Asset Management for being our sponsor. Rick asked Bitwise to support the show because Bitwise has just one mission: to help you understand and access the opportunities in crypto. As crypto continues to grow in scale and complexity, a trusted guide is more important than ever. That's why Bitwise has built a nationwide team of crypto experts to help you. So take advantage of Bitwise's team. They work closely with financial advisors, institutions, and individual investors just like you. Talk to a Bitwise expert today or sharpen your crypto knowledge with Bitwise's awesome library of content. You'll find great help whether you're a crypto beginner or a financial professional. Crypto has major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. So before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com for their library of content and to learn about the risks with these investments. That's bitwiseinvestments.com.
What do all the greatest innovations have in common? Agents of innovation. Ordinary people who shape the future by putting their money behind the right ideas. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100. So you don't have to be an inventor to help create what's next to come. Be an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 Index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the prospectus at Invesco.com. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
When your health diagnosis isn't going according to plan, you likely seek a second opinion. It's time you treat your wealth the same way. Get a new perspective, new information, a new diagnosis for your investments. Get a second opinion from a wealth planner at Edelman Financial Engines. Our dedicated planners offer personalized advice and are ready to talk one-on-one. Our approach is backed by institutional rigor. We model over 38,000 securities monthly, so we can better stress test your portfolio through thousands of scenarios. So, take a deep breath and take care of your wealth like you take care of your health. Get your complimentary wealth checkup today, where you can discuss your financial plan with a wealth planner. Call Edelman Financial Engines at 888-899-4450. That's 888-899-4450. Or visit planefe.com/Rick today.
Well, it is toward the end of the year. This is holiday season here on The Truth About Your Future, probably in your home as well. And as we get to year end, a lot of folks are thinking about taxes and all the issues you got to deal with. There's one other big thing that people are focusing on at year end, and that is generosity. Last year at the market highs, people were very generous. Now, a year later, stocks and bond markets, they're down 25%. Real estate's beginning to fall. Crypto's way down. What does this mean for philanthropy, charitable contributions, and being generous this time of year? To help us figure it all out, I'm happy to bring onto the program my friend Felix Kwan. He is Executive Director of Financial Planning at Edelman Financial Engines. Felix and I, of course, have known each other for many, 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 many years. Felix, it's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So what's the impact of the market mayhem in 2022 on charitable giving this year?
Like you said in your opening, it's down. You know, I think clients are a lot more nervous. I notice even friends and family are just not in as much of the giving mood now as they've been in previous years.
It's kind of understandable, of course. If your own circumstances are challenged, the value of your account is a lot lower than it was a year ago. There's a lot of uncertainty. We've got a new Congress coming into power in January. We have continuing uncertainty about the economy, certainly everything going on around the world, everything in, the war in Ukraine, troubles with China. We've got continuing uncertainty in the Middle East. We all know the issues that are going on. So I guess, Felix, you're right. It's kind of natural that people are hesitant to being as generous as they were last year. But it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because at the very moment you're feeling uncertainty and discomfort about your personal finances, the need for you to contribute to charity is greater than ever because so many people are struggling so much because of what's going on in the economy and the world, right?
I would totally agree. And I think this is where we have to remind clients or friends and family of that, especially now. And I'm sure we'll get into it more in detail, but there's different ways in which you can give. It doesn't always involve giving a security or whatever. I mean, sometimes it's and getting a tax break for it. That's not. I think that's kind of sometimes how the conversation starts with clients, but it's giving of yourself, of your time. Just even being a volunteer, like the CFP board. There's been times when I volunteered locally at you just donate your time and just be the on-call financial planner for any question that comes up. And so I think oftentimes I'll try to remind people that there's other outlets besides just traditional giving of investments.
Well, in fact, you're hitting on something important. Many folks are new to charitable giving. Where do they even begin? What are some of the ideas that you offer?
That's a great question. I think normally how it starts with like, how do I lower my taxes? So assuming that, let's say if somebody asked me like, what strategies, is there anything I can do to lower my taxes? So sometimes it starts from, the client. If they're a client of ours, or even a friend, it starts with really a relationship, knowing kind of somebody's full financial picture. What are their goals? What's their situation? So that way we can proactively recommend strategies. And I think the other thing too that you mentioned, year end, I think, sometimes some of these things really you need to have a lot of these conversations early on. Sometimes the conversation may come from the estate planning attorney, if a client has an estate attorney, or a tax preparer. Where a client needs to do some tax planning. Sometimes the idea will come from the financial professional also. But I think mostly it's, for us at Edelman, we have just relationships with our clients. We know them inside and out. We know when they're not giving as much as they used to. So it's my job is to kind of go deeper as to why that is.
Now, sometimes I would assume people are not giving as much as they gave in the past because they're not feeling that they can afford to, but you may know better. You know more about their finances often than they do themselves. Do you often find yourself needing to talk to clients to say, hey, you have had a history of giving money to this organization, that organization, et cetera. You've got a history of giving a certain amount of money each year. I'm noticing you haven't been doing that. And is that kind of a door opener to helping them realize, even despite what's going on in the world, they probably are in as comfortable financial position to be able to be as charitable and generous as they've been in the past?
Absolutely. We go back to the foundation of having just a comprehensive financial plan, understanding everything about their goals, their situation, what are the main priorities with their money, taxes, so on and so forth. And that way we have some, we have a foundation or a basis to go in and say, you can do this, you can do that. Like, what do you mean you can't do that? Right? That's not the client I know from all these years. So I think that's what really gives us that foundation to then go and make that recommendation. And I think, they just need to make sure that our clients have like a battle-tested financial plan to weather times like this. So that way they know that they can still continue their giving.
So are people unhappy about the fact that they are assuming they can't be as generous as they were in the past? Or do they feel that it's an obligation that they have to? How are people feeling about all this?
More so, I think just people, I think that you said at the very beginning, right? Confused, scared, upset about the politics, geopolitics, the market being down. And I think for me, I think once we kind of get underneath some of the root causes of all of that, but more importantly, what does that really mean, for your giving plan that you've had all along? I think that really just reinforces the fact that yes, you still can give. Yes, you can still retire. You can still take that vacation. You can still, I think, just reinforcing the fact that we've got this plan already laid out and we've already factored some of this in, so that way their spending or their giving doesn't skip a beat. It really shouldn't.
Describe that for us, Felix. When you say that the strategies for giving change, what are some of the strategies that you're talking about?
There's some of the main ways I think are going to be, the most common I think would be a donor advised fund. That's where you can gift, actually it's a lot of things, right? So, and the reason why I said early is important because, late, if I can kind of share with you, me personally, I was going to try to give a lot of Bitcoin at the end of last year. And it was I'm not going to name names, big reputable brokerage company. And I couldn't get a donor advised fund open. So a donor advised fund gives you the ability to gift highly appreciated, could be stock, it could be a mutual fund, it could be crypto, it could be Bitcoin, it could be anything. that allows you to give that asset as a donation, and instead of cash, you still get the tax deduction. I think it's important to work with your. I always try to make sure we work with their tax professional as a team, just to make sure that there's certain income limits in terms of what you're giving. But the donor advised fund is powerful because it allows you to give the asset. You can then invest the money into mutual funds, stock mutual funds, bond mutual funds, and then you can also grant the money to a charity, as long as it's a public charity. So, but I think one of the things that you have to worry about is right now, with this being November 10th, it might be too late for some places. And even some other things there are things like some of the donor advised funds, they can take real estate, artwork. One of the companies that I talked to is because I was like scrambling at the end of the year, right? And I didn't end up getting rid of the Bitcoin, and thing just collapsed, right? But some other companies, they'll even take wine. They called it like a liquid fund. So it's pretty interesting what these donor advised funds can actually accept as assets.
And the advantage of them is that once you make the contribution, you immediately get the tax deduction, but you don't have to actually distribute the money to the charity immediately. You can delay it for years and allow the money to just sit invested in a series of mutual funds until you're ready to have that money go to the actual charities. So it's a great way for you to make contributions that give you immediate tax break without having to make an obligation to giving to charities right away. So are you finding a lot of interest in donor advised funds, or do people know about them, or when you introduce them, it's a brand new idea?
Not really. A lot of people don't come in walking, hey, can I get a donor advised fund? It's very rare. It's usually when we know the client's situation, their goals. But it's also, like last year, wouldn't that have been a great way to rebalance your portfolio? Or sometimes would it have been better to donate it rather than selling stocks that are high and then buying bonds that are down, right? So depending upon the market conditions, it's another tool in the toolkit that you can use to help a client accomplish their goals, lower their taxes, provide a lasting legacy. More importantly, it's just now's the time to really give a lot more, just for all the reasons you mentioned. I think there's charities in general right now are probably hurting more now than they have been in the last 10 to 15 years.
And I'm assuming that's because the need for their services is up at the very moment that fewer and fewer people are donating.
Yes. And sometimes, some clients may be more hesitant to donate an asset now if it's down 20%.
What other strategies are you offering to clients other than donor advised funds?
So I think that'd probably be the most popular. I think there's sometimes you can also give directly to the charity. For example, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. You've got Stanford and Cal have a lot of clients who are alumni. They're actually, if anything, they're getting a lot of solicitations, a lot of information on ways that you can give directly to the college itself. And I think some organizations are also will also send out information in ways in which they set up their own giving accounts. So sometimes giving directly is an option. And I think the other ways is just donating your time. I'm trying to, for me personally, I'm trying to be a lot more intentional with what I'm giving and who I'm giving. And it's not just money or securities or crypto. It's like what's in the pantry, to the food bank. It's my kids are 10 and 12, right? We're probably not having another one, right? So it's their clothes. It's time, which is also very valuable. So I think that's something too that people forget.
And as we approach year end, I think that it is very common that most of the donations occur at year end, because that's when people are thinking about this with the holiday season. What are your thoughts on the timing of charitable activities and charitable donations?
I think the planning has to be constant. I think it really depends on our clients and what their goals are. So I feel like, if you can do it early and often, early in the year, and put together a plan and a strategy. I mean, it wouldn't have been great to do that early in the year as opposed to when things are down, you can give more. But sometimes at the end of the year, I think a lot of times, at least a lot of my clients in particular, sometimes they may be undecided. Sometimes they may say, their tax accountant may say, oh, you're in a high tax situation this year, you should think about giving. But if they're like, okay, well, to who and what do I give? Right? Well, talk to your advisor about it. They can help you with these kind of things. So, but then even when you have this conversation with clients in whether it be February or March or April, clients, they'll procrastinate, they'll wait, they don't know, they're undecided, which I think is totally fair. And then they'll wait until the very last minute. But then, now that things are down a lot more, sometimes it's not as an opportune time as it was earlier in the year.
Are there any tax rules that people need to be aware of in terms of what they donate or how much they donate?
Yes, exactly. So it depends on, so exactly what and your income. So there could be, for example, if you give cash donations, I think over the next several years, I believe it's 60% of your what's called your adjusted gross income, right? And then sometimes you'll have non-cash. Like if I have, if we just did, say a big remodel or something to the house, right? And we have furniture we want to donate as a big non-cash, couch or something like that, right? Then I believe that is at 30% of your adjusted gross income. So that's why I think it's really important to work with our clients' tax professionals to make sure that we are staying within, we are looking at certain limits. And, I had a client of mine who sold a pretty sizable property and moved to Hawaii, and we were immediately, on the phone with their tax accountant, just trying to figure out, it's like, does this qualify? It's a capital gain asset, how can we work this in? And it can lower your overall taxes, but it may not offset your big capital gains tax that you have to pay if you bought a house decades ago and now all of a sudden you've sold it for a lot. They may not help you there either. So it's always good to make sure that we include our clients' tax professionals into the conversation.
So give me your closing thoughts. What final takeaway do you have for our listeners? What do you want them to know? What do you want our listeners to think about as they're contemplating charitable contributions as we approach year end?
We could all be doing more. I think it's times like this when you guys pick up the phone, call a client, after people are still staying at home from COVID, feeling down, just maybe not going out as much, not going out and about. And, people just need to be reminded, they need that contact. They just need to know that now is the time. You're going to start seeing it more and more through the end of the year, just how important all these organizations, this is like their greatest time of need. So sometimes you have to just remind them and also encourage them and remind them that, hey, we factor this in, you can do this. And they just need that. They need that push, that gentle push a lot of the times right now.
That's Felix Kwan, Executive Director of Financial Planning at Edelman Financial Engines. If you want to learn more about charitable giving this time of year, you can reach out to Edelman Financial Engines at planefe.com/Rick. Felix, thanks so much for being with us on the show today.
Thanks, Rick.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. I'm Rick Edelman. Very happy to tell you, if you missed the news so far, that starting in January, this weekly radio show is going to become a daily podcast. Same content, same great guests and interviews, and I invite you to listen to the daily podcast, and you can subscribe to it right now. Just go wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Apple, Google, and of course, my website, thetruthayf.com. Giving you all the information you've grown to love that I present to you every week for the past 32 years. I'll continue doing that for you, but starting in January, as a podcast. My new podcast, it's free, The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
The Truth About Your Future is sponsored by Global X ETFs. You tune in every week to hear Rick Edelman tackle the personal finance topics that matter most to investors. And this year, what matters most is market volatility, stubbornly high inflation, and rising interest rates. It's been a lot to grapple with. At Global X ETFs, our income-oriented strategies can be an appealing way to help you position your portfolio during this period of uncertainty and volatility. Our approach goes beyond bonds and traditional fixed income investments. We focus instead on asset classes that offer you income-producing potential that you may not have considered, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferred stocks, covered call strategies, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing investors like you with income-oriented investments like these for more than a decade through both bull and bear markets. Come, explore our full range of ETFs and look at our research and more at globalxetfs.com or talk with your financial advisor. Global X ETFs.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman is sponsored by Charles Schwab. Schwab's passion for serving clients is more than standard practice. It's part of who they are. With transparent pricing, 24/7 live support, and a satisfaction guarantee, the people at Schwab go the extra mile to help you on your investing journey. They're not just financial people, they're people too. Learn more at schwab.com/whyschwab. That's schwab.com/whyschwab.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman, sponsored by Choice. If you want more control over how you invest your money, you need to check out Choice. Choice makes it easy for you to invest in Bitcoin and other crypto assets in your retirement account. You can transfer your existing IRA, roll over an old 401k, or start fresh with a new investment. There are no hidden fees or account minimums, just more choice in how you invest your money. You can open a deductible or Roth IRA and invest in Bitcoin, crypto, stocks, ETFs, gold, real estate, and more, all in a single account. Don't let your old bank or brokerage firm limit what you're allowed to invest in. Do what Rick did and take control of your future by heading on over to retirewithchoice.com/Rick. That's retirewithchoice.com/Rick. Or simply search Choice IRA in the App Store or Google Play Store on your iPhone or Android device. It's your money. It should be your choice. retirewithchoice.com/Rick.
I'm Rick Edelman. I've got a question for you. During COVID, remember when it first emerged in the spring of 2020, back then the Congress and the White House reacted very quickly to try to make life a little easier for people who suddenly, unexpectedly lost their jobs during the immediate shutdowns that occurred. Remember all that? Of course you do. Well, let me ask you a question. Did you take advantage of one of the rules that Congress created, allowing you to withdraw money from your IRA or 401k? You didn't have to be 59 and a half in order to do this without penalty. This was all part of the 2020 CARES Act. It was a desperate effort to reduce the awful economic impact as a result of the shutdowns that occurred when COVID emerged. So if you withdrew money from your IRA during COVID or your 401k, that, of course, created a tax liability. Not a penalty, but you still had to pay taxes on the income. The CARES Act gave you time to pay that tax. So here's the deal. If you took the money out during COVID because you needed the money to help support yourself during that terrible time, well, you know what? If you put the money back, you will get a full refund of the taxes you paid. See, under the CARES Act, you've got 3 years from when you took the money out to put the money back into the account. This is really cool because you probably took the money out needing the money or fearing that you might need it. That forced you to pay a big tax liability. But now that we are past all that, and with the incredible increase in the stock market since 2020, I mean, despite what's been going on this year, well, you may be in a stronger personal finance situation than you expected or had hoped back in 2020, which means maybe you've got the ability today, using other savings and investments or other resources, to pay back your IRA or your 401k. Tax law lets you do it, even though that was 2 or 3 years ago. And that means you'll get a tax refund of all the taxes you previously paid on that withdrawal. It's a really cool opportunity. So talk to your tax or financial advisor because the clock is ticking as we're approaching year end for you to be able to take advantage of this. And I think it could be a good idea, a good opportunity for you to lower your taxes in 2022 by taking advantage of this. And oh, by the way, at the same time, you'll be boosting the amount of money you have in retirement savings. It's a double win. So talk to your tax or financial advisor if you withdrew money from your IRA or 401k during COVID. Stay with us for more here on The Truth About Your Future.
Allow us to introduce you to Sabrina, an ordinary person who helped shape the future by putting her money behind the right ideas. Each morning, Sabrina enjoys a 20-mile bike ride and meditation that brings her serenity for the day to come. Sabrina is also accessing the companies that are revolutionizing the tech world by investing in Invesco QQQ. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100, which goes to show you don't have to be an integrated circuit engineer to help push progress forward. Become an agent of innovation. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs' risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 Index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit Invesco.com for a prospectus with this information. Read it carefully before investing.
Afraid to look at your financial statements? Shredding them without opening them? It's time for a second opinion from Edelman Financial Engines. Our opinions aren't based on intuition or daily market movements. They're grounded in institutional rigor, and all of our planners are fiduciaries who put your interest above all others. So if you need help managing the ups and downs of this market, we're ready to talk. At Edelman Financial Engines, you get personalized investment recommendations from a dedicated wealth planner who doesn't sell products to earn commissions. So stop shredding those financial statements. Let's take a look together. It's time to get a second opinion. Get your complimentary wealth checkup where you can discuss your financial goals with a wealth planner. Call Edelman Financial Engines at 888-899-4450. That's 888-899-4450. Or visit planefe.com/Rick today.
The Truth About Your Future is sponsored by Global X ETFs. You tune in every week to hear Rick Edelman tackle the personal finance topics that matter most to investors. And this year, what matters most is market volatility, stubbornly high inflation, and rising interest rates. It's been a lot to grapple with. At Global X ETFs, our income-oriented strategies can be an appealing way to help you position your portfolio during this period of uncertainty and volatility. Our approach goes beyond bonds and traditional fixed income investments. We focus instead on asset classes that offer you income-producing potential that you may not have considered, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferred stocks, covered call strategies, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing investors like you with income-oriented investments like these for more than a decade through both bull and bear markets. Come, explore our full range of ETFs and look at our research and more at globalxetfs.com or talk with your financial advisor. Global X ETFs.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. You know, you have probably heard the words Web3 and blockchain, digital assets, but everybody is still so confused about all of this, and understandably so. It's a brand new tech. So to help you understand what it is and why it matters, why you need to care, I'm very happy to bring onto the program Sandy Kaul. She is Senior Vice President at Franklin Templeton, one of the largest fund companies in America, at franklintempleton.com. Sandy, great to have you here on the show.
Great to be here, Rick. Thank you for having me.
Sandy and I recently did a webinar together, and I think it might well have been the most impactful webinar I've ever done. And you can watch that webinar. I'll tell you how later on. But I thought it would be worthwhile to bring Sandy on here to the show to share with you what she shared with all of the financial advisors we spoke with on the webinar. Let's begin at the very start, Sandy. Web3, blockchain, digital assets. What does it all mean?
Okay, so let's break them down one by one, Rick. So when we say Web3, what this means, it's the next iteration of the internet. So if you think of what Web 1 was, Web 1 was static web pages. Think about the early days of Amazon or the early days of Google. right? Web 2 became a user-centric web. Think social media, Uber. People started to be able to interact over the internet, and the presentation of material became very user-centric. And Web 3 is the next iteration of this that is really focused on not just letting people be engaged with the internet in terms of interacting around content, but they can actually initiate and fulfill their own actions on the web. So it's going to be, think about being able to like book a car like you do on Uber, but not having to go through Uber. So that's what Web 3 is. It's this new iteration of the web where you can do commercial transactions directly without needing to go through a platform.
And this is all a result of the fundamental technological innovation of blockchain technology, which is now about a dozen years old. Blockchain's first product was Bitcoin, and then that led to tokens and tokenization. So talk about that evolution that we're in this bigger, broader technological revolution.
Right. There's three parts, and you hit on two of them exactly in that presentation, Rick. So the first is blockchain. That was a new innovation in that it's a ledger, just a record of transactions, who bought and who sold, but it's distributed across everyone who wants to look at it and participate in the network gets to see the record. So very strong new technology that allows for a lot of transparency. Digital assets and tokenization are the new assets that are being created that are trading on top of the blockchain. And then the third piece of the puzzle are these new smart contracts that sit within the tokens that allow for the code to describe how you are going to fulfill the transaction. So to go back to my example of being able to book a car directly, rather than having to go through an Uber, it's the smart contract inside of the token that will allow you to make sure that that ride is appropriately booked and paid for.
So what's the point? I mean, what's wrong with Uber? Why do we need this new platform? Why don't we just do it the way we're doing it now?
Yeah, well, few reasons. Number one, it costs us more money to do it the way we're doing it now because Uber takes a cut of everything that we pay through the platform. And so by doing it directly, you can potentially lower the prices that you're paying. In addition, you can actually start to own the networks that you use the most in this new Web3 space. So instead of Uber owning all the revenues and Uber owning all the benefits of the platform, you as a user start to own those platforms and those benefits.
Which means we're going from a role of being the fan or the consumer of that content, the user of the content, we're now being the owner of the content, which makes it more profitable for us.
Absolutely. And it gives us a lot more control over our own data and over our own payments and over our own economic activity.
You recently published a white paper on this entire conversation. And in this research paper, you said that we're now in the fourth innovation cycle, Give us a quick recap of the first three that already occurred and the fourth one that we're in now.
Yeah, these cycles are really cool, right? It's when new technology comes out, and as a result of the new technology, businesses can do new things. And because they can do new things, they invest and they rebuild the infrastructure that they deliver their business on. So the first cycle was in the 1960s and early 1970s when computers became commercialized. Before that, computers used to fill a whole room and they were basically only used by the military and big academic institutions. So that was the first wave. That was the first cycle. The second was when the personal computer and the internet came out. Again, that completely changed the way that business operated and how we delivered business capabilities. The third wave that we're in now was about social media and this ability to interact over investment platforms. And so that has been the third wave. And companies like we've been speaking about, Uber or Airbnb, where we can become both the supplier and the buyer of services. And we're heading into this new fourth wave, which we're calling decentralization. And this is all about Web3 and the ability to do these commercial transactions without the need for an intermediary.
Which means that the buyer and seller will do a transaction directly. We don't need a broker, a real estate agent. We don't need a title settlement company. We don't need a lawyer. It's all done automatically through computer code directly on the blockchain using non-fungible tokens, which most people think are just, cool images of art, or maybe not so cool images of art online, or reuse in games, online video games and such. But this is really a whole new, big, different business model that's going to impact commerce on a global scale.
It's going to enable so much more activity and allow people to have so much more control in their lives. An example that we talk about a lot that came from the initial wave of computerization is that it used to take 90 minutes to book a single airline reservation. And when they introduced this new computer network, it actually went up to 7,500 reservations per hour. That's the kind of increase in transactional activity that we really might start to see as everyone in the world can start to set up their own transactions. It's going to really cause, I think, an explosion in activity throughout the world and a great opportunity for individuals.
Now, at the same time, though, while we approach this new megatrend, it's clearly going to be changing society and investing. But I'm also suspicious that there are going to be some unexpected or unintended implications as well. What might they be?
So I think one of the biggest is that the crowd, this idea of the crowd voice, is going to get even louder. Already we're seeing both positives and negatives from this crowd voice. But if the crowd can now set up any transactions they want, whenever they want, that power is shifting increasingly to these networks of people and individuals. And that can have both positive and negative implications. While it's good for commerce, it may not be good for lots of other kind of more societal aspects of how people connect.
And we're clearly seeing this on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, social media broadly, of wonderful immediate access to content, but some of that content is highly suspect. And so I think we're seeing the good with the bad. And this is probably just we're going to get more good and we're going to get more bad, just the nature of the tech itself. So from an investment perspective, if you had to guess, what do you think the investment portfolio of the future might look like? Like right now, we know that it's got a bunch of stocks and bonds, pretty much, maybe a little bit of real estate and dab of gold, maybe crypto. What might the investment portfolio look like in the future?
Well, I think the most amazing opportunity about the portfolio of the future is that these smart contracts that sit inside the tokens can give rights to the owner of the token. So it could be property rights about accessing different properties or getting into concert venues for a band that you like, or it could be having access to a special lane on a bridge that you commute over. So that's an actual right that your asset in your portfolio is going to convey to you. And it can give you intellectual property rights. So things like buying into the royalty pool of your favorite band and actually getting income from parts of your favorite band's sales. These are things that are going to become part of your investment portfolio. So the investments that you put money into that are actually accumulating wealth for you are also going to give you new benefits in your day-to-day life and make your investment portfolio is going to become a source of enjoyment and a source of convenience for you, not just your investment portfolio alone. So that's, I think, the most exciting change we see coming.
And I find fascinating that Franklin Templeton, one of the largest and oldest mutual fund companies in America, 75 years old, managing trillions of dollars in assets for consumers all over the U.S., is all over this new tech. This old, stodgy mutual fund company is now as cutting edge as it gets, recognizing that this technological innovation is going to change everything. And I'm really excited about the research that Franklin Templeton is doing, the white paper that you have read, the white paper that you have just written. And I think investors are going to be really relieved to know that the biggest, best most reputable organizations are not going to fall behind. You're going to continue to offer the investment strategies and solutions that investors are going to need as we go forward into this brave new world. And I think it's really, really exciting. I really encourage you to read Sandy's new paper. We have arranged for it on our website at thetruthayf.com. If you would like to read or download the paper, you can do it for free. Just go to thetruthayf.com. And I encourage you to talk with your financial advisor about Franklin Templeton Funds and the research that they're doing, led by Cindy Kaul and her team at Franklin Templeton, in this new world of our megatrend. So that's Franklin Templeton at franklintempleton.com. Cindy Kaul, Senior Vice President for Franklin Templeton, thanks so much for being with us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyable conversation.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. There's a big news from IBM recently. This is continuing a big trend, and it's a disturbing one with an underlying message you need to be aware of. IBM recently transferred $16 billion from its pension plan to a group annuity sponsored by Prudential. Now, IBM's pension plan is pretty darn big. This is the largest pension plan buyout transaction in 10 years, and it's the second largest in history. Well, what does this mean? Well, IBM has a big pension plan, and in that pension plan, they've promised current workers as well as current retirees that they're going to get a check in retirement. This creates a massive legal and financial liability for IBM. What many companies are discovering is that their pension plan is crazy expensive for them to manage, and they're struggling to earn enough money in that pension plan to honor their promises. So think about this. Workers are living a lot longer than companies expected when they created their pension plans decades ago. And the performance of the financial markets, the stock and bond markets, have not been as good as the actuaries have expected. And the result is IBM is finding themselves in the predicament of having to kick in more money into the plan than they had originally budgeted for. This is a big drag on IBM's profits. Wall Street isn't happy about it. The shareholders are not happy about it. And it's a real nuisance. It's a real annoyance. Well, what do you do when you have a legal liability where you've made promises to retirees who used to work for your company for 30 years, as well as current workers who are counting on you to honor your pension promises for when they retire? What do you do about it? IBM is putting their foot down and saying, that's it, no more, we're done. They're taking their pension obligation and transferring it to Prudential. They basically said to Pru, you take the $16 billion and you will now be responsible for it. And in the course of doing this, Prudential is putting the money into an annuity. And now the only promise that the retirees are getting is whatever money Pru is able to produce inside that annuity contract. In other words, you no longer have a pension plan covered by ERISA. You no longer have the legal obligation of IBM to honor their promises. IBM's off the hook. They've transferred this obligation to Prudential. And Prudential now has this responsibility for more than 100,000 IBM retirees who were covered by IBM's pension plan. The message is very clear. You've got to ask yourself, why would IBM have done this? And by the way, IBM is one of dozens of Fortune 500 companies that have done the very same thing. They are shutting down their pension plans. They are offloading the liabilities to insurance companies and private equity firms, converting their pension dollars into annuity assets where they are not enjoying the same level of guarantees that the pension plan had offered. Why would they be doing this? Because they don't want the legal liability. They don't want the financial responsibility. They're fearful that they're not going to be able to honor it, which means you, as that pensioner, could be left holding the bag. The message is very clear. If companies are taking this step, they are basically sending a message that they don't believe they're going to be able to honor their pension obligations. And they're doing this legal and financial tactic to absolve themselves of that issue, which means you need to keep that in mind. If you were working for an employer that's promising you a pension, you must not behave as though that pension is a sure thing. It might not be. There is a huge pension shortfall in America, meaning the amount of money that are in pensions is not enough to fulfill the obligations that those pensions have promised. The amount of money they promise to pay you for the number of years they promise to give it to you, they're not going to be able to honor that, which means you could discover in your 80s or 90s that the pension has gone bankrupt, that the pension has simply run out of money, that the company might no longer exist, crushed by the pension obligation financially. So, if you've got a pension being promised to you where you work, wonderful, fabulous, glad to hear it. You're among a minority of American workers. Don't assume that you therefore don't need to save for retirement. You do. You should act as though the pension doesn't exist, or maybe cut the number in half of what they're promising you on the attitude that, well, they're only going to give you half of what they're promising. You should take the attitude that you need to save for your retirement just like everybody else has to do. You can't take the cavalier attitude, well, gee whiz, I've got a pension, I don't have to worry about it. Just because you've got a pension doesn't mean your worries are over. You might have to worry about it after all, and that's the real message here. Got a pension? Good for you. Save anyway. Otherwise, your financial future may be far worse than you're expecting. I'm Rick Edelman, and frankly, I hope that that's not the truth about your future, but you need to prepare in case it is. You know, I'm really excited about how well my book, The Truth About Crypto, has been doing. It was published in May and debuted at #1 on Amazon. It has been up for a number of awards and now being published in 8 languages around the world. And now we just got the word that in Italy, the publisher there is adding a foreword to the book that's being written by Alessandro Brunello. He's one of Italy's top experts in non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and crypto. He teaches about NFTs and the metaverse at one of Italy's most prestigious business schools. So I'm really honored that he has agreed to write a foreword for my book, The Truth About Crypto, the Italian version. Time now for everybody's favorite segment of the program, a visit by my wife, Jean Edelman. Jean, a student of the healing arts, Reiki, traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, and of course, macrobiotic and plant-based cooking. Here's Jean.
Great to be with you this week. The weather's getting a little cooler, days a little shorter. And this week I wanted to talk about the word chapter. I've just finished a good book, and it made me think about our life and our personal chapters. A chapter can be a moment. It could be a day, a week, a year, a decade. If we can step back and see our life in chapters, it might give us better perspective, and we may not get as stuck. If we can look at our life in chapters, we can see the future maybe with a little more optimism and ease. So an action item for this week is, if we have a situation where we don't know how to manage it, or we have a situation where we don't know how to move forward, let's sit down and find some quiet time with a pen and a paper. And let's look at it in perspective as we are writing a chapter. Write out all the characters, write out all the twists and turns, and then write out what all the possible outcomes can be. Our writing can help us set intentions, and our writing can help us have a clearer path for how to move forward. And so my word of the week is very simple. It's page. The P is for positive. The point of our journey is to learn and find out about ourselves, as much as we can about ourselves. And then the key is to have the tools to look deeper into these different chapters or situations in our life so that we can move through them with ease and health. and we want to move through them and look for the positive. The A is for adjust. If we were writing a story, we can adjust the scenes, we can adjust the characters, we can adjust the outcome. It just takes a little courage, but we can do it. The G is for gratitude, because when we have gratitude in our hearts, we can write a better chapter. We can see our world in a better light. And the E is for engage. When we are writing, we are engaged in our life, our journey, our lessons. We are using our intuition, and we can create a wonderful story. It's so helpful to have tools to give us good perspective. And I think sitting and writing out our next chapter is a wonderful tool. Remember, if we're not caring for ourselves, we can't care for others. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
I know you can't get enough of Gene. Well, you can go to thetruthayf.com for more of Gene's Words of the Week.
Did you know Schwab offers a satisfaction guarantee? If for any reason you're not completely satisfied, Schwab will refund your fee or commission and work with you to make things right. You won't find that kind of promise everywhere, but you will find it at Schwab. It's just another way that they put clients' interest at the heart of everything they do. Learn what's included and how it works at schwab.com/satisfaction. That's schwab.com/satisfaction.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Thanks for listening to today's show, and thanks to Bitwise Asset Management for being our sponsor. Rick asked Bitwise to support the show because Bitwise has just one mission: to help you understand and access the opportunities in crypto. As crypto continues to grow in scale and complexity, a trusted guide is more important than ever. That's why Bitwise has built a nationwide team of crypto experts to help you. So take advantage of Bitwise's team. They work closely with financial advisors, institutions, and individual investors just like you. Talk to a Bitwise expert today, or sharpen your crypto knowledge with Bitwise's awesome library of content. You'll find great help, whether you're a crypto beginner or a financial professional. Crypto has major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. So before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com for their library of content and to learn about the risks with these investments. That's bitwiseinvestments.com.
Well, that's all the time we've got on The Truth About Your Future this weekend. Remember, sign up for my new master class, Financial Planning in the Age of Longevity. It's free at thetruthayf.com. That's thetruthayf.com. See you next week.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman has been brought to you by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. And by Bitwise, a trusted guide in crypto has never mattered more. Connect with their dedicated team of crypto experts nationwide at bitwiseinvestments.com. And by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100. Invesco.com. Stay tuned for Everyday Wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky from Edelman Financial Engines. Everydaywealth.com/radio. EFE and The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman are unaffiliated entities.
Get the truth about your future every weekend with Rick Edelman. It's thetruthayf.com.